everyone, this is Dominic from Dominator Collectibles, and today we're going to be talking about grading. Grading is a subject that I get questions about all the time. I'm going to yap for a while about why you should get stuff graded, mainly why you shouldn't get stuff graded. I think if we all got 40% less things graded, it probably would be better for everyone. But we're going to really just kind of dive into a few tips and tricks and how much added cost and time it's going to add for you to get stuff graded. So the very first thing you have to remember whenever you're going to get anything graded is the actual cost of grading itself. Grading is very expensive, and a lot of times I see people getting items graded that they really shouldn't be graded. What a lot of people don't realize is really what it entails when you get something graded, what it does to the item, what it does to the liquidity of the item, what it does to the value of the item, and what it does to your cost, essentially, into that item. There's so many items out there, like this one, for example, that should have never been graded. There's no real reason for this book to be in a slab from a value standpoint. I want you to keep that in mind, strictly from a value standpoint. This is a $25 raw book, high grade Spider-Man #1. Graded, it's worth maybe 50 bucks. I think it cost 27 to get it graded. I did not grade that one myself. I came in a collection. So an item like that, there's no real reason for that to be graded from a value standpoint. Now, grading is a really, really valuable tool if you know how to use it. Obviously, anyone can just go onto the CGC website or PSA or any of the comic grading websites. EBCS is gone now, rest in peace. But CGC is the most popular. So anyone can go onto the CGC website, fill out the form, send the books down. I think they go to Sarasota, Florida. You can, pay the money, you get them back. It's pretty straightforward. The three main things you need to keep in mind when you're getting books graded, and that is 1, the cost of grading, 2, the value of the item in its current ungraded state, and the value of the item after it's graded in theoretically whatever grade you think it should get. Those three things are the main things you have to keep in mind when you're going to send a submission out to grading, whether it's comic books, video games, or Pokemon cards, or TCG, any TCG really. It's really, really important. Obviously, there are a few other reasons to get stuff graded, mainly for preservation, if you just like the look of something in a slab. Certain items, buyer confidence is huge, or it can be really low on certain items. If you get it graded, that can go through the roof. Buyer confidence is a big one, especially with some of the really really niche, really rare, high-end, high-grade items. Having those items certified gains you a ton of value. And the cost of grading is something that is so wildly overlooked by most people. And when I say the cost of grading, I'm not talking about just, to get this comic book graded. I think right now it is $27 bulk or $30 if you send in just this one book. So it's $30 off the rip, just for the grading cost. Then if you want to get it cleaned and pressed, that's an additional cost. I do all the cleaning and pressing myself, so I don't have to worry about that, but that is an additional cost for most people if you want to go down that route. You have to pay for shipping, you have to pay for taxes, and the other thing you have to pay for that nobody thinks about is time. It takes a really long time to get stuff graded, and you definitely should get stuff graded if it meets a few certain criteria that you're going to have to set for yourself. I can help you get there, but I can lay out the criteria really, but you're going to have to decide, is it worth it to have this book locked up in CGC for 3 months? Theoretically, I think the current turnaround time is for 3 months, when you probably could sell it tomorrow if you listed it on eBay or you go to a show or this, that, the other. But this is kind of where we're going to start, though, and I'm going to give you a few examples of things you should get graded, things you shouldn't get graded, and like I said, those three things you really have to keep in mind, which is the total cost to get something graded, the value of the item as it sits, and the value of the item after it's graded. So, this book, Amazing Spider-Man 300, Todd McFarlane cover, first appearance of Venom, 1988, Marvel Comics. One of the probably top 5 or so Copper Age Marvel books, in my opinion. Probably I'd give it top 5, probably top 3, maybe more than that. I don't know. It's a pretty, as far as Copper Age books go, when you see a Spider-Man 300 in a collection, you get real happy. So this book, as it sits, probably about a 7.0. I think current value on this is about $375 to $400 as it sits raw. Now you have to remember, like I said, it's going to be $30 to get it graded, plus all the other stuff we added on. So by the time you're all said and done, you're probably looking $45, $50 if you just send in one book. So $50 to get it graded. Let's call it $400 as it sits, raw value. You get it back from CGC. It gets the 7.0 you were hoping for. Value on that 7.0 is $375 to $400. The value between this book as it sits and a 7.0 is exactly the same as of right now, August 2026. A 7.0 and a raw 7.0, or raw, whatever, I guess that would be what, fine minus or whatever. It's both $400 as they sit. So you lose $50 grading this comic book. Not great. So that one, there's no reason to send it to CGC, unless, like I said, maybe it's your childhood copy, you want to get it preserved, something along those lines. There's definitely other reasons to get things graded, but the reason most people get things graded is from a value add perspective. They want to increase the value of their item. And for some items, you absolutely can do that. This is not one of them. Unfortunately, this is about a $25 raw book. Again, it costs $30 to get it graded, and it's only going to sell for $50 if you're lucky. So you're losing money grading that. So if you look behind me, all of these books are very high-end books. All of these are going to be pretty much worth grading. Amazing Spider-Man 1, Famous Funnies 212, one of the classic Frazetta covers, Hulk 181, one of the kings of the Bronze Age, first appearance of Wolverine, incredible book, Planet Comics #1, 1940 Fiction House, just one of the classic books, one of my personal favorites. All of these books are going to be worth getting graded because either they're really old or they're really expensive, and it's hard to lose money grading these books unless you pay a really strong price for them. Like if obviously Spider-Man #1 I think is worth about $8,500 in a 3.0. If you pay $8,500 for it while it's raw, you're obviously going to lose money if you get it graded. But the buyer confidence is huge on that, especially when you're spending more money. Most of the time, these books you're going to end up getting graded, but they're pretty self-explanatory. The other thing you do have to keep in mind, though, is it's very expensive to grade these books. Grading Spider-Man #1 is going to be a couple $100 probably by the time it's all said and done. 181 is going to be a lot cheaper. You can sneak this one into theoretically the high value tier in CGC, but most of the time it's going to be worth it to grade these kinds of books. But where people really get hung up is on items like this, and items like this, and items like this, where the value of the graded item very rarely exceeds the value of the raw item. And where that gets a little tricky is with figuring out what grade you're going to get. It's harder for some people to figure that out because they haven't seen as many or graded as many items, and a lot of that just comes from time and experience. But the best thing you can do is most people can get within a 3-point range on the grading scale, whether it's comic books, video games, Pokemon cards, this, that, the other. So if you're not confident in grading your items and figuring out what they're going to grade before you send them out, give yourself a wide buffer. So let's move on to Pokemon cards, for example. So we're going to take this Roaring Skies Rayquaza. This is a super cool card. I really, really love it, honestly. It's one of our works. I'm probably going to keep this one. But this is a super cool card, Roaring Skies Rayquaza. As it sits raw, it's about a $30 card. In an 8, it's about $100, and in a 10, it's about $2,000. So you're going to look at this card, and you're going to say, okay, it's got a lot of corner wear, the edges are pretty busted, there's some staining. It's probably going to get, I think, a 4 or a 5 would be my guess. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm not very confident in my grading or if I'm a little newer, is I'm going to price out a PSA 3, a PSA 4, and a PSA 5, and maybe a PSA 6, just to see what the values are. You figure out the values of all of those items, and you basically just figure out, okay, it's going to cost me $30 to buy this card. If it gets a 6, it's worth $60. If it gets a 4, it's worth $30, because That's a real thing where you get a card graded and it's worth less than the graded example, especially with the ultra modern stuff. Like this Oshawott, for example. I didn't look this one up, but off the top of my head, I would wager that a PSA 9 is probably worth the same as a raw one. That is a lot of times the case. Or the raw one, if it's an 8, the raw one's definitely worth more. If it's a 9, the raw one's probably worth slightly less or pretty close to, but by the time you factor in time and grading, a lot of times the raw ones are, it's better just to have a raw one than a 9. A lot of people will actually crack out 8s and 9s of new stuff and sell them raw. It's the same with video games, believe it or not. Like the Soul Calibur, for example. I think I didn't look this one up. I could be wrong. I could probably get $150 for this ungraded. I've had it sitting on eBay for $180 unsold for quite some time. So you really have to figure out the like I said, the liquidity of the item, the value of the item, the value add of the item, and like I said, with modern Pokemon, it's just really tough. And not to mention, right now, Tag is only accepting the cheapest you can get a card graded at Tag is $150. The cheapest you can get a card graded at PSA is $80. So getting a $70 card graded for $80 at PSA doesn't make any sense. Getting it graded for $150 really doesn't make any sense. So then you have to go through the list of your grading companies that actually make sense. So right now, if I want to get it graded in August 2026, I have to send the card to CGC. CGC is $17 a card for bulk. I think it's $20 for a single. So realistically, like if I think my Oshawott's going to get a 10 and it goes to CGC, I have to figure out, okay, is the CGC 10 worth more than the raw one? I would hope so, but crazy things happen. And that's just kind of what I'm saying. Do some research into the items you're going to send in. Don't just send stuff in willy-nilly. Go through eBay sold listings. Look at all of the items and the surrounding grades of what you think you could get. You don't need to win on every single item, but the more you win, the better, obviously. With certain items, like this Gale of Darkness for GameCube, for example, there's literally no reason to get a CIB copy of this graded unless it's ludicrously high grade. People buy Gale of Darkness because they want to play it. This is a $180 game as it sits. I think there's been a PSA 9.4 copy on eBay for like $500 for quite some time that is unsold. I'd be very surprised if you got this graded and it got a 7, if it's sold for, or even an 8, or maybe even a 9, if it's sold for any more than a raw copy at $180. Maybe it would just because it's Pokemon, but that's really something you have to factor in, is the raw versus graded thing. And that's the biggest thing that people forget. It's just the raw versus graded debate. And also, like I said, keep in mind the liquidity. See how many items sell in the grade that you have, or the grade that you are theoretically hoping to get. If you only sell 2 items a month or 2 items a year graded, that's not great. But if it sells all the time raw, like with Gale of Darkness, you're probably better off keeping it raw. Not to mention, grading a CIB Gale of Darkness means you can't play it anymore, which really sucks because Gale of Darkness is awesome. So video games, like I said, a little bit more tricky. Cards in the mid grades, especially the vintage, way easier to figure out what's worth grading and what's not. Ultra modern is tough, I'll give you that one. Even I grade stuff that I'm like, oh, this is going to get a 10 for sure, and it comes back an 8. It happens. It just does. So like I said, you're not going to win all of them, but try to be more thoughtful, or maybe not you specifically, but try to be thoughtful when you send in stuff for grading. Like I said, really keep in mind the cost of grading, the value of the raw item, and how much the projected estimated added value is of the item you're hoping to get back. I think that more or less covers it. Like I said, there's definitely some reasons to get stuff graded, even if you know you're going to lose money, which would be like from a preservation standpoint, or if it's a childhood, an example you had from your childhood, this, that, the other. So I'm not saying that, you can't ever lose money grading stuff, it's just going to happen naturally over time. You know, I've lost plenty of money grading stuff I shouldn't have, especially in the beginning. And, you know, hopefully this video can kind of help you narrow down what you should get graded and why. The biggest thing to keep in mind, though, is realistically, and I think it's so overlooked, is the liquidity of the item you're trying to take from a raw state to a graded state. Really look at how many are selling both ungraded and graded. Some stuff just sits in slabs. I don't know why, it just does. Video games are a pretty big example of that. Unless it's really, really, really high grade. Like I have where'd it go? I thought I had a Star Fox around here somewhere. Oh, I think it's in the back. So some stuff just really sits. Like I've had this Star Fox for forever. No one's bought it. It's an 8.5 B+. If I cracked it out and sold it raw, it probably would sell for the same value that it's currently worth in its graded state. That's especially true with the disc-based stuff. This is a 9.2A Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. If I crack this out, it looks beautiful. Like there's not really anything wrong with it. If I crack this out, it's worth more ungraded than graded. That's especially true with a lot of video games, unless you're getting literally 9.6, 9.8 on disc-based stuff. PS1 is a little bit more finicky. I probably should have did a little more research as to what this Spider-Man's worth ungraded, but it's probably not a ton more than the graded example. Now this is a 9.4, 9.6, that changes things. But again, do your research. Look into the stuff that you're gonna get graded. There's no reason not to. The only person it hurts is yourself when you go to sell something, you go, man, I just lost 25 bucks, or I broke even and it burned up 3 months of time. Because that's how long it takes to get stuff graded a lot of times, unless you're paying for the fast tiers, but the fast tiers are more expensive. That cuts into your overall margin. But having said that, I actually just got back a shipment from CGC literally today as I was heading over here. So I'm gonna grab it and I'm gonna open it up. So this is the box, CGC. We just sent in some books for grading. So we're gonna get it back. Well, we did get it back. We're gonna open it up now and I'm gonna show you guys what I graded, and I'm gonna kind of explain why I graded it and what the theoretical value is of the items before and after. So this is actually really funny. This is not the shipment I thought it was. I thought I was getting back an Aquaman 1 and a Flash 139, and this is a Secret Wars 8. What's this one? Batman, Vengeance, Bane, First Appearance of Bane, Black Panther #1, a DC Comics Presents 47. This was actually a 7.0. I cracked and pressed this one, but that's a conversation for another time of buying stuff, cracking it, getting it regraded, and a Spider-Man 238 with the tattoos. You can tell that because it's a blue label, not a green label. If it's missing the tattoos in the back, it will get a green label. And then last but not least, the Secret Wars 8. So, that is what I just got back. We'll pull out the one that I probably maybe shouldn't have gotten graded, and that is this one. So, all right. So why did I choose to get these books graded? Obviously, it's because I either thought they were really high grade, which some of them are. We got a lot of 9.4s, so 9.6. I thought it was going to add value, which it did. I did not need them back immediately. It took at least 3 months to get these books back, and that's pretty much it. Those are my two reasons. Now, if I had the shop running and I really needed the books, I might not have sent them in. I might have just sold them raw, with the exception of the 238, because I honestly thought that one might have got a 9.8, but 9.6 pretty good. But the book I shouldn't probably have gotten graded is Vengeance of Bane Special #1. One-shot book, First Appearance of Bane. Pretty cool book. 9.4 is tough because I think as it sits, I probably could have got $75 for this. It looks beautiful. It's really, really, really nice. I spent $30 to get it graded, and it's probably only worth $100. So I probably actually lost money on this book, and that just goes to show, even people who do it for a living sometimes get it wrong. I really thought this was going to be a higher grade than a 9.4. I thought it was going to be a 9.8. That's the only reason I sent it in. It looks really nice. So, I don't know. That's a weird one. But that also goes to show, and we'll pull out this one. So the people who are grading your books, especially comic books and now a lot of Pokemon cards, they're just people. They are giving your item a subjective grade. That does not mean it's correct necessarily. It just means that they think it is correct. You might disagree. Like, for example, this book, when I bought it, was a 7.0 and it is now a 9.0. That's a massive, massive jump. And yes, I did press it, but it really didn't need it. Like, I think I probably could have sent this book in unpressed, and I think it still would have gotten 8.5 or a 9, legitimately. Like, it was really, really, really nice. And that happens a pretty good amount, especially with cards. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen the videos of people sending the same card in 6 times and getting 6 different grades. Now, that doesn't really go into what we're talking about today of why you should get stuff graded and, this, that, the other. And obviously, if you get something graded twice, it costs twice as much money, it's twice as much time, this, that, the other. But if you do get something graded and it doesn't get the grade that you were expecting, that it might not necessarily be wrong, but then you have to really figure out, like, okay, is it worth it to send it in, pay another $30 for, like this one? I spent $30, got it graded, it got a 7, cracked it back out, sent it back in, and it got a 9. So now I'm in this book for $60. Fortunately, I got this one very, very cheaply. It just came in a big Bronze Age DC lot, the Bronze and Copper DC lot, and I got kind of lucky with this one. I bought it cheap and ended up getting a nice grade. I don't know what it's worth in a 9.0, because I think in a 7 I was very disappointed. But so I'm in that book for about $60. I'm probably a little more than that. Probably I'm in that book for $70, somewhere around there, maybe 75. I'm sure it's worth significantly more than that, and it's definitely worth more in a 9 than it is ungraded. But that's, like I said, that's one of the things that I was keeping in mind is, okay, the book is going to cost X amount to get graded. It's worth X amount of dollars. Yes, no, yes, no. That's kind of how we go down the line. Some stuff is really easy to choose whether to get it graded or not, like the Spider-Man 238. This book is beautiful, like a really, really nice raw one. You can still get a lot of money for a really, really nice raw one, especially if you are selling at a convention, you write near mint on it, and it actually is near mint, like this one. Or if you post on eBay, take a ton of pictures, this, that, the other, you can still get a decent amount of money for ungraded copies that are legitimately very high grade. This book is a pretty easy decision. I knew it was really nice. It looks like you can get about $4.50 for it as it sits raw, because it's super nice, high grade, blah, 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 blah. I thought this one might actually 9.8, which is why I sent it in. Just because it would have a shot. And even if it got a 9.6, like it did, I'm still not losing money because it's worth about $5.50 or so in its 9.6. So I spent $30 to get it graded, plus shipping in the other one. We'll call it 50 just to make everything cohesive. So I could have sold it for $4.50. Now it's worth $5.50. Cost me $50. So I made an extra $50, but it took 3 months. But if this got a 9.8, I'd be up exponentially more. But this was a fairly easy decision. Some of them are harder, some of them are easier, but just go into it with an idea of, like, okay, worst case scenario, it gets X grade, it's worth X dollars, it cost me X dollars, you can go from there. But that's, I think, more or less it. That's, like I was saying, so make sure, let me just check my little sticky note of notes real quick, that we got all of the points, which is cost of grading, like I said, the value of the raw item, keep in mind, the value of the graded item that you're going to get. Like I said, if you're not confident in your grading, get the middle grade that you think. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, price all of those out from the company that you want to get the item graded by. It's very important. So if you see a CGC 10 whatever, the value of a CGC 10 and a PSA 10 a lot of times are not the same, unless it's like pristine. So if you get a pristine CGC 10, sometimes these are closer, sometimes they're more, sometimes they're less. It really just depends. I think this one's worth slightly more than the CGC, or PSA 10 rather. But that's something to keep in mind. So value of graded item, make sure you comp where you're going to send the item. If you're going to send your items to PSA, don't comp CGC cards or vice versa. And then, so obviously the added value, buyer confidence, like I was saying, with your Spider-Man 1s and your really expensive vintage stuff, your Chamber Chills, House Secrets, this, that, the other. If you're going to get that stuff graded, it is a lot of times easier to sell those kinds of items when they're graded just because of the buyer confidence. But not saying you can't, not saying they don't sell well ungraded, because they do, but that can add a layer of confidence, especially if you're selling to a less experienced collectors. Less experienced collectors tend to gravitate towards graded items because of the confidence factor. I know if I'm going to get into a category that I'm not very familiar with, a lot of times I'll look for a certified item first, kind of get my feet wet, say, okay, I know what to look for. You compare seals, compare this, compare that, and it can definitely give you a good confidence boost buying a high ticket item that is already certified. And that's why people do it a lot. It's value added, and that certification just for the trust factor and the knowledge that you're probably, hopefully, not going to get scammed. There's a lot of stuff that goes into identifying, counterfeit slabs and things that have been cracked out and a new item's been inserted and the slabs have been resealed, but that's a conversation for another time. So add buyer confidence, big one. Preservation, big one, especially with the really old stuff. Like I'll show you one of my favorite, my Planet Comics #1. This book's from 1940. 1940. It's extremely old, and the paper they used was awful. It is the cheapest, worst paper humanly imaginable. And these things just fall apart. I've seen it time and time again. You're at a comic convention and you're handling a book, or you take a book out and bits fall from the book. And it just happens. But if it's in a slab, a lot of times you don't have to worry about that, especially if the pages are not brittle. If they are brittle, though, sometimes you can still see some debris in the bottom of the slab from the book literally disintegrating. And with items like that, a lot of times it makes sense to get them graded. This one made sense to get it graded from a preservation standpoint and from a value standpoint and a confidence standpoint. Anytime you're going to spend, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a book, you have to be pretty confident in what you're doing to buy a book that expensive that is ungraded. And fortunately, I do this full time, so I can make that decision easier than some people probably. But for whoever's going to buy this book, probably feels better that it's graded. And if they don't want it graded, they can just crack it out. It's not the end of the world. I've done that plenty of times, especially with cards, where if I see a card in a PSA 6 holder and I want it for my binder, I'll just crack it out. It's worth more raw a lot of times anyway. But so that's that. The other thing, and then like I said, last thing, keep in mind turnaround times. Time is money. If you send in an item to get graded and it's going to be gone, actually video games are pretty fast turnaround right now. If you send in an item to get graded, it's going to be gone for however long it's going to be gone for. If it says 45 days, it's probably longer than that. Turnaround times are going up now, not down. There is a time where I'm sure they'll be shorter, but it's not right now. Keep in mind, this can be a double-edged sword. The item you're going to get certified is going to be there for a while, most of the time. It can do three things while it's there. It can go up in value, it can go down in value, or the value can stay the same. And I'm talking about the ungraded value. Raw value obviously can do the same, but until it's graded, you don't know what that is, so you're going to use the raw value. We've heard stories about people sending in cards to PSA that were worth X amount of dollars. The market went up a lot, the card went up a lot, and they ended up getting upcharged. It happens. It definitely happens. But, a rising tide raises all ships right now. Pokemon's super hot. It's going up. Everything's going up. But there is going to be a point eventually, I don't know if it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whenever, where the market is going to have a pullback, especially on the crazy expensive stuff. I think I've been doing this a while. I've seen it in a lot of categories. Even the really premium stuff doesn't normally go up forever and ever. There's obviously exceptions, but generally speaking, you may see a pullback. So keep that in mind too, where, if you're sending something in and it's in a market that is not generally rising, you could be stuck with an item that is worth significantly less when you get it back. That is not a non-factor. So if you're sending something out and it's going to be gone for 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, however long it's going to be, try and keep the general vibe of the market in mind as well. Grading is a great tool. There's a lot of amazing companies out there that do amazing work. But I think, like I said earlier, you can get away with grading significantly less stuff. I can get away with grading significantly less stuff. Learn the markets that you are going to participate in. Learn the items you're going to participate in. Handle a ton of everything. Buy bulk stuff. Feel the cards, feel the books, feel the games. Just get an idea of what an item looks like in every asset, or not every asset, in every condition. The same item. Try and get a bunch of them. I love comparing items when I send them in to get graded. If you're going to send stuff in, write down on a note, on a sticky note, on a post note, whatever, your phone, notes. Make a note of what you think it's going to get. Compare what it comes back to. Use that information the next time you get something graded. And really just try and learn everything you can. Try and see as many cards as you can, as many comics as you can, whatever asset is going to be. Just try and get your hands on as much as humanly possible. The more you handle something, the more you're familiar with something, the better you can get. I mean, a lot of the really good comic guys can pick up a comic book and just know if it's missing a page. That doesn't come from looking at stuff on the internet and not going to shows and not handling books and not interacting with your collection and other people. That comes from handling thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of books. And it doesn't happen overnight, but the more you can ingrain yourself with whatever category you like, the better you're going to be in all assets of it, whether it's grading, selling it raw, this, that, the other. I kind of went on a little tangent there, but I started off saying you need to get less stuff graded. It's not as important as you think it is. It definitely is a great tool that should be utilized, but a lot of times it's not necessary. And a lot of these companies now, especially with like PSA, are getting a lot of backlash for their grading practices, their turnaround times, their value, their cost, the fact that they're sending offers on cards, buying the cards, selling them for more, not paying out insurance, this, that, the other. So when stuff like that happens, it decreases the confidence that that company has kind of across the board. The general market is softer on PSA than it was a year ago. Not the values, I mean, the values are still the values, but the confidence that people have in PSA is significantly lower than it was a year ago. It's just, it is what it is. You see, there's a reason why Tag shut down their grading, because a lot of people are moving from PSA to Tag. Obviously, PSA also shut down their stuff, so PSA is still getting plenty of stuff. But the general discourse in the community is something to keep in mind as well. And one way you can alleviate being a part of the discourse or having to deal with, okay, I have my card graded by X company, but X company is no longer favorable, is not having it graded by X company. So if you're worried that PSA, isn't going to be favorable in the future, which they may or may not, I don't know, don't get stuff graded with PSA, or don't get it graded at all, and just be a little confident in your item and go from there. It's not rocket science. It's all stuff that can be learned by repetition. There is nothing in the collectibles hobby that you can't learn by repetition. And what I mean by that is, like I was saying, just going through the binders, looking at all the cards, going through your own cards, confer with your friends. I get pictures and videos all the time of people saying, hey, what grade do you think this is? What grade do you think that is? It's all good. It's all knowledge. You can just kind of do that. And, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. But yeah, so a lot of it's just repetition. So I think that's going to be about it. I think my editor's going to have a heck of a time putting all that gibberish together, me yapping. But, first time doing this, first time kind of just talking to a camera with a bunch of light shining in my eyeballs for however long this was. And hopefully this helps you out a little bit. If you have any questions, please feel free. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Throw them in the comments. Please like the YouTube channel, or like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and have a great day.